Hey there, today we're talking about cravings and how they're created through a 4-step process. And this involves what's happening chemically, hormonally inside your body. First of all, we're going to talk about what the catalysts to increasing cravings can be. Now, it's no surprise to you, I'm sure, the two sex hormones that begin to fall after the age of 35 are progesterone and estrogen. Now, you know that already. All right, so between the age of 35 and 45 is the perimenopausal time before the menopause kicks in. And the average age for a woman to go through the menopause itself is around 50. But things start to happen around the age of 35 for many women. Now, between the age of 35 and 45, progesterone and estrogen levels begin to fall away. Now, in that 10-year period, progesterone can fall by up to 75%, and estrogen can fall by 35%. So this is like the initial domino that falls and impacts everything else. Digestion, mood state, sleep, weight management. Everything that you experience in life is initially triggered by what happens during perimenopause, all right? And this links to cravings and how they are much stronger or can be much stronger. If you're looking to reduce cravings, keep watching. Hi, I'm Stephen Taylor, and I'm a healthy habits coach and a functional nutritionist, currently helping women over the age of 35 to regain that control of food, movement, exercise, and most importantly, their body, and leading to happiness, feeling happy more often. Now, today we're talking about cravings. Now, there's 4 phases that I'm going to share with you about how cravings are created. Now, the first stage is understanding that there's some sort of cue. There's some sort of reason for a craving to kick in. Now, the second phase is what the craving actually is. And some people crave sweet things, some people crave savory things. But generally, there is a reason for it happening, a cue, a trigger, and then there's the craving itself, and then there's a response. And following that, when you've eaten that thing, or done that thing, comes the reward phase. Now, every craving and every habit is created like this, in the same way. But it's important to understand what's happening with hormones, not your estrogen, not your progesterone, but when it comes down to dopamine. And dopamine is that chemical that's released in the center of the brain that triggers a reward. All right, so initially, the first time, let me give a scenario. The first time you feel maybe stressed or anxious or a little bit low, emotional eating isn't just tied to negative emotions, it's tied to happy emotions as well. But we're talking about how people can stress eat or eat more when they're feeling anxious or worried or tired. Now, initially, the very first time, and we're talking about a dopamine hit now, if you're feeling a little bit low, you have that sense of, I'm not feeling my best. I'm feeling a bit low, I'm feeling a bit sad. And that's the cue. Now, the craving is what your brain is interpreting as something that you want. So your brain doesn't tell you you want a piece of chocolate or you want a glass of wine. It doesn't tell you that. It tells you what you're used to having more of in your body. So if you're used to having more savory things, more salty food, it's going to give you a craving of something salty or savory. If you have more sugar in your diet, it's going to give you a craving of something sweet. Now, you interpret that as whatever you want, whatever your go-to food is. So if you eat and have more sugar in your diet and you like dairy milk chocolate, then you're going to crave a piece of dairy milk chocolate. Now, the response is either going to the fridge or going to the cupboard and taking that thing and then eating it. So then the reward is how you feel good when you've eaten that thing. That's a reward system. Okay? Now, initially, there's no dopamine at all at any of these stages. So no dopamine here, no dopamine while you're eating it, and then you get a dopamine spike here as the reward. So it feels comforting when you eat it, you feel a little bit better, and then you feel the connection between what the chocolate has done and then how you feel. But the more you repeat that process, a little bit further down the line, you have the same response. You have the same trigger. You feel a little bit sad, and what happens there? No dopamine here, and then as you crave it, because you got the reward last time, you get a dopamine spike here during the craving phase. Okay? But then when you get to reward phase, it becomes a little smaller. All right? So you get a spike of dopamine, that feel-good hormone, makes you feel good when you're craving the thing. And we're talking about a piece of dairy milk chocolate or a bar or whatever you choose to have when you crave something sweet or savory. Now, you can see how the reward system is less as we move along. Now, as you repeat this process over and over again, you think when you feel low, then you're going to crave the same sort of food, similar food. All right? Now, again, further down the line, nothing happens. And now this time the dopamine hit gets a little bit smaller. And as you follow this trace, this happens. You get a negative reward system. You get a negative reward because now you're recognizing that repeating eating chocolate or having a glass of wine when you're feeling stressed at the end of the day isn't a reward at all. In fact, it's moving you further away from how you want to experience living in your skin. All right, which then ultimately leads you to feel more sadness. So you either eat more. So this is what you can do further down the line. You get a smaller hit, and then what happens is you get a negative drop of dopamine hit here, and then you have to eat or drink more to get that reward spike. All right, so you end up eating more or drinking more to get the same or similar reward system in the brain by releasing dopamine. Do you follow? So initially, when you're creating a habit or a craving, in this case, a go-to food, you have maybe a sadness or an anxiety, and you look around for something. You're not sure what to have. You eat the thing and there's still no dopamine, still no reward from the brain. And then when you finally eat it, there's a spike of feel-good hormones. Now, the more you practice this thing, the more you'll get a dopamine spike after the trigger. All right, you get a dopamine spike because you've realized that you feel good when you eat the thing or drink the wine. But the more you do it, the reduced dopamine spike you get during the craving, and then it becomes a negative spike. So you actually start to feel sad because you can't stop yourself reaching for something sweet or something savory, and it's ultimately, you know in your logical brain that that's not helping you. So you have to eat more or drink more to get the same feeling, but ultimately it's moving you away from your goal. Because what we are designed to experience more of is happiness. So anything that we do in life, the end result is happiness. So if you're getting to the stage where you're craving something and you eat it or you drink it and you don't feel good, then that should trigger a logical response. What I'm doing isn't helping me. But it's about how you get around this part here. Okay? Because even if you replace your full fat, full sugar soda drink with a sugar-free option, you'll still get a dopamine spike here, but the reward doesn't come. No dopamine spike. So then it's been shown the likelihood for people to then go and find something with sugar and to get the hit later on is highly likely. All right, so you maybe have swapped from a full fat cola to a sugar-free, caffeine-free, but then the brain still wants that surge because you've learnt you need some sort of reward to help you feel better. Okay, so how do we stop that? If it's a chemical that's released in the body, You're on automatic pilot by the time you've got to that learnt behavior of reaching out and grabbing something that supposedly makes you feel good, but ultimately, as we've just shown, it doesn't give you the reward of dopamine towards the end. So how do you stop that? And ultimately, it stopped between here, this point here, and this point here. So this part is really key, because what we do in this phase, the feeling and then the craving, it's all done with subconscious feelings. It's parts of the brain where we don't necessarily engage with it logically, but you can do. There's almost a 5-second gap between this part and this part. So just as you've created this habit, you can also create a brand new habit of breaking this cycle right here by acknowledging the feeling. How do I feel? If it's sadness or anxiety or worry that triggers it, recognize that you're feeling anxious and sad and engage with that feeling logically. I recognize I'm feeling sad or anxious. I know if I don't take hold of this and do something different, I will end up at this end searching for a reward with that piece of chocolate or with that glass of wine. And if that's what you don't want to do, you can intercept it right here. And I call it the 5-second switch, because the 5-second switch will stop you reaching for this bit here, this reward system. All right, so you have the power to stop a craving right here. That's a super powerful feeling to know that you have got the ability to control any craving, any habit, and reverse it into something which is benefiting your health and wellness. Because when you do that and you feel low or you feel anxious, what we're doing is we're searching for the final phase of the reward system, the dopamine hit. So if you are able to, or when you do intercept this with logic, then you don't get a dopamine hit here. And you know, if you do something else, all right, it might be go for a walk. It might be you've found an alternative snack to eat. Or it might be that you exercise. It might be that you put on your favorite music and have a dance around, whatever it is. Then if the response then is, I'm not going to eat the chocolate because I'm engaging with this logically, it doesn't help me, it doesn't make any sense, I'm going to break this, I'm going to stop this. And you choose to put your favorite music on and have a dance around the kitchen, you go through this process and your response now is, I'm going to dance around the kitchen, listening to my favorite song, and your reward is right here. Dopamine hit, you feel good, and then you carry on your day. So in order to break a habit that's being created over time, because no one is born with a sweet tooth, it's created over time. But it's important to understand that those falling hormones, progesterone and estrogen, can trigger a stronger drive to immediate gratification, searching for dopamine. In order to circumvent that, to move around that, if it's not something you want to experience, if you know that reaching for wine or reaching for chocolate isn't helping your ultimate goal, which is to feel happy more often, then you can interject, you can step in here with this 5-second switch. Engage with it logically. I'm not going to choose chocolate. I'm not going to choose wine. I'm going to put on my favorite track and dance around the kitchen. Whatever you choose to do, something you know makes you feel happy. Looking at some old photos of the children, your favorite holiday, reminding yourself of maybe your wedding day, triggers a reward of dopamine, that feel-good factor, and then before you know it, you've moved past what the initial craving was. The more you practice this, the more this version becomes automatic. So you've ditched old cravings, old habits to create brand new ones which align with your goals. And if your goal is to lose some weight or feel slimmer, look better and you feel better in your clothes, it's ultimately down to this thing, happiness. And that's how we can do it. If you want to know more about the 5-second switch, then drop me an email back and I will send you some information. Have a fantastic day. Speak to you soon. Bye.